Essentially, Groundswell is a record of the history of Christian surfers and its beginnings right through to modern day. And essentially it's a testimony of ordinary people trusting God for the extraordinary. I guess you could say it's begun with a whole bunch of very ordinary surfers who'd found their way into the Christian faith. And for me personally, meeting a Christian who was a surfer, and I didn't think you could be that in one body, when I was 16 years old at Kirrawee High School. And through the influence of the first Christian I'd ever met who was also a surfer, me coming to faith, and then deciding that we actually wanted to do something which would connect our newfound Christian faith with our surfing identity. This book really came about when my wife was saying, you know, if you take a big wipe out at Sandon Point and you die, that story's going to die with you, so it's about time you get it down before it goes. So that was a real motivating force behind a lot of things. But I think the one thing, as you write something and you reflect on, you know, that people ask me how long did it take you to write this, I say about 38 years. And the one thing that stands out is our vision for Christian surfers when Jeff and I started this in 1977 as a bunch of 18-year-olds was next Monday night. What are we going to do next Monday? And that was as far as it went in those early days. And sometimes it still feels a little bit like that. There's still a lot of mayhem and things being made up on the run. But as you write something and reflect on it, you see God's unmistakable fingerprints working things together despite us. And so that's probably the one thing that stood out, Brad. We felt marginalised from the Christian community because we were surfers, and marginalised from the surfing community because we were Christians. And out of that sort of conflict was this, how do we make this sort of work together? It was very much a countercultural thing, and the traditional church by and large wasn't ready for us. It's the puberty blues era, and surfing was seen as particularly worldly. And so the idea of doing a Christian ministry around surfing was quite revolutionary. But I was pretty fortunate that my friends at Gymea Baptist and some other churches around that time, Cronulla Uniting and others, could see the potential for some sincere Christians who really wanted to make an impact in their beach community. I had personally come to a stage where in my early years I told God that when I was old and about to die I was going to come back to Him, but right now I was leaving God so that surfing could come. But soon after I'd become a Christian, I had an experience where I found that I had to surrender my surfing, and surfing had to go for God to really come in the full forefront of my life. And out of that, I think it would be true to say, a couple of weeks after I'd surrendered my surfing to God, He actually gave it back to me in the form of Christian surfers. So it was a real spiritual experience, that particular incident.
Let's officially launch Groundswell in its two versions at Cronulla, and there's a number of other launches to occur, and they'll be on the Christian Surfers website and a few press releases. So certainly if you've got friends in Wollongong and Queensland on the Central Coast and around the world, those launches will come. So I'm going to put this microphone down, and I think I'm going to take it upon myself to shake Brett's hand and take a photo and officially launch Groundswell in Cronulla.
The US is an interesting one because we had the Christian Surfing Association, which had started up by a one-legged, non-surfing guy that came out to Australia and was really taken with the community we had. And then that was eclipsed by the Christian Surfers movement there, which again was an ironic one with a 45-year-old police officer who'd never surfed as well in Santa Barbara. Again, classic examples of unlikely people that God's used. And they quickly changed their name to Christian Surfers after attending our first international conference and thought, mate, we want to be on board with what you guys have got going in Australia. In the United States, I think they've got about 25 chapters around the country, about 6 staff, and they'd easily have a couple of hundred volunteer leaders working through that. This year is our 10th anniversary conference. It rotates around the world to different regions, but we're going back to Hawaii, and it's a chance for our leadership to come together. We do 3 things. There's the teaching and training, the input information aspect of it. There is celebration, where we hear reports and input from things. And then there's also a whole aspect of strategy and vision, where we have one shot of just combining what it is we sense God doing around the world and shaping that into some future direction for the next 2 years. I would say to the churches around the world that Christian Surfers is simply one example where you can take the passions that you have, and if you surrender them to God, He can use them for His purposes and create incredible bridges into the community from your church. Because as long as we stay in our churches, focus on our church programs, we're never going to reach the Great Commission Jesus said to go into all the world.